Hello, and welcome back to Your Brain Lied, the podcast where we unpack the sneaky ways your brain can trip you up and how to untangle those knots. I'm your host, and today we're diving into a topic that I think touches almost everyone at some point: fear of failure, that relentless inner critic, and the exhausting pursuit of perfectionism. These three things, they're often tangled together like a messy ball of yarn. And just like that yarn, we need to find the loose end to start unraveling it. So, grab your favorite drink, settle in, and let's get started. Now, fear of failure. It sounds pretty straightforward, right? You're afraid of messing up. But it's so much more nuanced than that. It's not just about failing a test or missing a deadline at work. It's often about what we think that failure means about us as people. It's tied to our self-worth, our sense of competence, and even our fear of what others might think. Think about it this way. Imagine you're starting a new hobby, say pottery. You've always admired those perfectly shaped mugs and bowls, so you sign up for a class, excited to create your own masterpieces. But then, reality hits. Your first attempt looks more like a lopsided ashtray than a beautiful vase. And that's when the fear creeps in. I'm not good at this, you might think. Everyone else is doing better than me. I'm going to embarrass myself. And suddenly, the joy of learning a new skill is overshadowed by the fear of not being perfect right away. That's fear of failure whispering in your ear, trying to convince you to quit before you even really get started. It's the voice that tells you, if you can't be great at it immediately, why even bother? The problem is, fear of failure doesn't just stop us from trying new things. It can also paralyze us in situations where we're already committed. We might procrastinate on a project, avoid asking for help, or even sabotage our own efforts, all in an attempt to avoid the possibility of failing. It's like putting on a suit of armor that's so heavy you can't even move. You're protected from failure, sure, but you're also stuck. And who's often fueling this fear of failure? Our dear friend, the inner critic. We all have one. That little voice inside our head that points out our flaws, magnifies our mistakes, and generally makes us feel inadequate. It's like having a tiny, judgmental roommate living in your brain. Now, the inner critic isn't all bad. It can actually be helpful sometimes. It can push us to improve, to learn from our mistakes, and to strive for excellence. But when it becomes too harsh, too relentless, and too focused on the negative, it can be incredibly damaging. It can erode our self-confidence, fuel anxiety, and contribute to that overwhelming fear of failure. Imagine you give a presentation at work. Afterwards, your inner critic jumps in. That was terrible. You stumbled over your words. You didn't make eye contact enough. Everyone could tell you were nervous. You probably looked like an idiot. That's a pretty brutal assessment, right? And even if there were some valid points in there, the overall tone is so negative and judgmental that it's more likely to make you feel discouraged and defeated than motivated to improve. The inner critic often operates based on unrealistic expectations and black and white thinking. It sets the bar impossibly high and then beats you up when you inevitably fall short. It forgets that making mistakes is part of being human, and that learning and growth come from those experiences. And that brings us to perfectionism. Perfectionism is that relentless drive to be flawless, to meet impossibly high standards, and to avoid any and all mistakes. It's like constantly chasing an ideal that's always just out of reach. On the surface, it might seem like a good thing. After all, who doesn't want to do their best? But perfectionism isn't about doing your best. It's about being perfect. And that's an important distinction. The thing is, perfection is an illusion. It doesn't exist. No one is perfect, and nothing is ever truly flawless. But perfectionists often hold themselves to this impossible standard, leading to chronic stress, anxiety, and disappointment. They might spend hours agonizing over small details, constantly revising and tweaking until they're completely exhausted. They might procrastinate on starting a project because they're afraid they won't be able to do it perfectly. They might avoid taking risks or trying new things because they're afraid of making mistakes. Think about someone who's planning a party. A healthy approach might be to plan the best party they can with the time and resources they have, understanding that things might not go exactly as planned. A perfectionist, on the other hand, might spend weeks obsessing over every detail, from the decorations to the menu to the guest list. They might feel overwhelmed by the pressure to create a flawless event, and they might be incredibly critical of themselves if anything goes wrong. The joy of hosting a party is completely overshadowed by the fear of imperfection. Perfectionism is often driven by a deep-seated fear of judgment. Perfectionists believe that their worth is tied to their achievements and that they must constantly prove themselves to others. They're striving for an external validation that is impossible to achieve because the standard for perfect always shifts. They feel like they have to earn love and acceptance by being flawless, and that any mistake will reveal them as inadequate or unworthy. So how do we break free from the cycle of fear of failure, inner critic attacks, and perfectionistic tendencies? It's not an easy process, and it takes time and effort, but it's absolutely possible. It's about learning to challenge those negative thoughts, to reframe your perspective on failure, and to cultivate self-compassion. First, we need to understand that failure is not the opposite of success. It's a part of it. Every successful person has experienced setbacks, made mistakes, and faced challenges along the way. Failure is an opportunity to learn, to grow, and to come back stronger. It's like learning to ride a bike. You're gonna fall, you're gonna scrape your knees, but you're not gonna give up. You get back on the bike, you keep practicing, and eventually, you'll be able to ride with confidence. Think of it as gathering data. You try something, it doesn't work, you adjust your approach and try again. Each failure is valuable information that helps you course correct. Second, we need to learn to challenge our inner critic. When that negative voice starts chattering away, don't just accept it as truth. Ask yourself, is this really true? Is there another way to look at this situation? Often, you'll find that the inner critic is exaggerating or distorting reality. Try to reframe those negative thoughts into something more balanced and realistic. So instead of saying, I'm a failure because I messed up that presentation, try saying, I made some mistakes in that presentation, but I also did some things well. I can learn from this experience and do better next time. Treat yourself with the same kindness and understanding that you would offer a friend in the same situation. And third, we need to let go of the need to be perfect. Embrace imperfection. Recognize that making mistakes is part of being human and that it's okay to not be perfect. Focus on progress, not perfection. Celebrate small victories and acknowledge your efforts, even if the outcome isn't exactly what you hoped for. It's about striving for excellence, not perfection. There's a huge difference. Excellence is about doing your best, given the circumstances. Perfection is about achieving an impossible ideal. Think about it this way. If you wait until you feel ready to run a marathon perfectly on the first try, you'll never even lace up your running shoes. But if you accept that you'll start slow, that you'll need to train, and that you might even walk part of the way, you're much more likely to actually cross that finish line. Now, I know this is a lot to take in. And overcoming fear of failure, quieting your inner critic, and letting go of perfectionism is a journey, not a destination. It takes time, practice, and self-compassion. But you are not alone. Everyone struggles with these issues at some point. So let's wrap up with a few actionable takeaways that you can start applying in your own life today. First, I want you to reflect on a time when fear of failure held you back from pursuing something you really wanted. What were you afraid of? What were the potential consequences of failing? And what did you miss out on by not trying? Second, I want you to identify one area of your life where you tend to be overly critical of yourself. What are the unrealistic standards you're holding yourself to? How can you reframe those standards to be more realistic and compassionate? And third, I challenge you to do something this week that scares you a little bit. It doesn't have to be a huge, life-altering thing. It could be something as simple as trying a new recipe, starting a conversation with a stranger, or signing up for a class. The point is to push yourself outside of your comfort zone and to challenge that fear of failure. Remember, your worth is not tied to your achievements. You are valuable, capable, and worthy of love and acceptance just as you are. So be kind to yourself, be patient with yourself, and keep moving forward, one step at a time. Thank you for joining me on Your Brain Lied. I hope this episode has given you some insight tools to help you overcome fear of failure, quiet your inner critic, and embrace imperfection. Until next time, take care of yourselves and remember to question the stories your brain is telling you. They're not always true. Subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.